So, I wanted to talk a little bit about my use of magic in Darkest in the Light, my occult thriller novel. Since it's a very complicated issue that I had to put a lot of thought into. I worked really hard to get something I was sort of happy with. And in all honesty, I am well aware of certain real world practices that I interpreted and that I got I'm sure I got maybe not wrong, but perhaps not totally accurate either. And that is a limitation of being a storyteller and needing to tell a story using these concepts. I at least like to think that I hit closer to home than something like, say, A Dark Song, the movie, which just sort of uses the real names of things and then outright just kind of fabricates everything that happens in the effing movie to serve a whatever purpose they were whatever story they were trying to tell. And to reiterate, Darkest in the Light, the magic in Darkest in the Light is inspired by real world practices. And less the sort of less the actual things that witchy folks get up to in this day and age, but more what witchy folks believed was and perhaps might still be possible in certain circles. I'm not sure if that makes much sense, but I'll explain what I mean. Like I've never seen a man astral project or a botched demonic possession firsthand. Um, but there are like historical accounts of these stories and these legends of such things being possible. And it's certain members of like magical orders claim to do all kinds of crazy stuff, like being able to fly and turn invisible, and you get the drill. And being a work of fiction, I can take all of these magical legends and traditions and interpret them as real, um, basically, which I think is kind of fun. Um, and while I do take these stylistic liberties, I did try my best to present a very accurate and respectful portrayal of these different magical traditions and practices, right? These forms of belief and spirituality that are real and that people do have very strong feelings about. So I tried to use these things to ground my story and ground the narrative, and also to foster engagement with the story itself. And the first and greatest of my inspirations was obviously the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and more specifically, the magician Aleister Crowley, the wickedest man in the world, famous pretty much everywhere. His ideas of the White Lodge and the Black Lodge, these sort of opposing concepts of the selfless good and the selfish evil, I really leaned into in Darkest in the Light. It's a very Jedi versus Sith mentality, but I think it works very well, and I called upon it in Darkest, bringing out this order of evil magicians being a very self-interested organization, if not outwardly obviously malevolent right off the bat. Now they do see themselves as good, right? And they claim to have this very noble goal. They want to better the world, but it is through this very Nietzschean master mentality. They're very strong-willed, and they have that criminal mentality almost. That sort of they look out for their friends and lavish their friends and family with gifts, and they destroy their enemies utterly. That sort of approach to things. And Rowena, my main character, she stands opposed to this in a lot of ways. Though she is far from a ceremonial magician herself, her practices are more in keeping with chaos magic. She makes use of magical sigils and sort of innate pseudo psychic abilities to get by, relying on instinct and passion and such. And she is far from anything I think even Crowley would recognize as a true white magician. She too has a very strong ego. Um, she is pure instinct and determination, and she is ambitious. And that makes it her very easy. She's easy prey for the temptations of the Black Lodge, so to speak. But conversely, she sort of loves her friends and family, right? She adores them, and she's not willing to give up anyone. She's not willing to sacrifice anyone or anything just for a bit of power. So Rowena fights against these evil magicians, and she comes face to face with some really weird stuff, and that's where I leaned into a lot of folklore and the like. I leaned into these legends of the powerful magicians trapping spirits in magic circles and binding them to their will with ancient words of power. It's while I don't lean into like I don't give you a step by step guide to commanding Salamnic spirits. There is that sort of stuff happening, just more or less off screen. And that is where demons come into play, right? And demons are a hard thing to get right because it's not like you can easily call one up and ask them personal questions. So I just decided to come in with my interpretation of the classic evil spirit and stick with it. So you've got like in Darkest in the Light, you have these tiers of evil spirits. You have the demons who need physical bodies in order to operate in the physical world, right? And they don't have those, so they kind of need to possess people and have host bodies to do their stuff. Um, and while otherwise, they are just kind of ethereal spirits floating around. They're bad ideas, really, just floating around in the aether, right? They're still dangerous, quite dangerous, but not as dangerous as an actual physical monster. That's sort of the next tier up, you know. So you have your demon, your Pazuzu, your Paimon, you get the drill. And they need a human body, perhaps a willing cultist who has offered themselves up for the greater good. Um, so they have trapped the spirit in them, this demon inside them, and then the other magicians have bound it to serve their agenda. Um, but if the possession goes wrong, the demon ends up as a sort of kind of raving wild animal, you know, a monster, really. I guess sort of like a ghoul, perhaps. Very useful, but as a guard dog or an assassin, a competent, not really a competent agent in your endeavors. But if they adapt well, now that's when things get interesting. They can pass as eccentric humans or men in black even. Um, and the best of them turn out as like chameleons, right? They can pass as just a human perfectly almost. Those are very rare, granted, and rarer still are not demons at all, but angels, actual angels. Angels and fallen angels, don't get me wrong. And there happens to be one or two such beings floating around in the cast of Darkest in the Light. They're capable of walking among mortals without issue in a sort of flesh of their own design, if you will. And it is these creatures, these powerful beings, that prove to be naturally the most dangerous of the bunch, right? And they're the top dogs. If a fallen angel walks onto the scene, everyone sort of hits the deck, right? They panic, and the most powerful magician needs to do something about it, generally, either make a deal or find a way to trap them, perhaps in a magic triangle or circle. Um, and you'll have to see for yourself how all this sort of shakes out in Darkest in the Light. It's now available on Amazon. You look it up, and like and subscribe while you're here, and go ahead and buy my books, review them, and follow me on Amazon. All that stuff. I very much appreciate it. Every little thing helps. Yes, you can contribute to my ascension to the rank of, well, not starving to death. So yeah, bye.